Chair has just left, so I'll leave that in the clerk's hands.
Mr. Chair? While you're in, I move that Ron McKinnon chair this meeting. That is what we normally do in a situation where the vice chairs are not available and the chair is not available. We can, as a committee, appoint a chair for the meeting, and so I would like to move that.
The clerk does take the lead on this, Mr. Julian.
I've moved it. You were in the chair. So you just stay in the chair, and then we vote on it, and we're done. And it is done. That's parliamentary democracy.
Honorable members of the committee,
Honorable members of the committee,
page 1043 of House of Commons Procedure and Practice stipulates that in the absence of the chair and vice chairs, the committee clerk.
Take any point of order? I will start again, and we'll double check. L'honorable membre du
Honorable members of the committee, page 1043 of House of Commons Procedure and Practice.
There you go. This must be there, isn't it? It's a weak line. Okay, no, good.
Perfect. Honorable members of the committee, page 1043 of House of Commons Procedure and Practice stipulates that in the absence of the chair and vice chairs, the committee clerk must preside over the election of an acting chair before the committee can begin its work. Honorable members du comité, la page.
Honorable members of the committee, page 1043 of House of Commons Procedure and Practice stipulates that in the absence of the chair and vice chairs, the committee clerk must preside over the election of an acting chair before the committee can begin its work.
Now proceed to an election of an acting chair in order to conduct other business. Le comité doit maintenant passer à l'élection.
We must now proceed to the election of an acting chair in order to conduct other business.
Motions to that effect. Je suis prêt à recevoir.
I am ready to receive motions to that effect.
I propose Ron McKinnon.
Il est proposé que Ron.
It is moved that Ron McKinnon be acting chair.
Yeah, Mr. Mutz, I think before you.
I move that we appoint Eric Melillo.
It's time for a young face.
No offense. You have a bad knee, Ron.
Now that Mr. Eric Melillo be acting chair, that's the second motion. Is there other motions that I should consider? Since more than one candidate has been nominated pursuant to Standing Order 1063A, any motions received after the initial one shall be taken as a notice of motion, and such motion shall be put to the committee until one is adopted. Puisque plus d'un candidat a été proposé conformément à la.
Since more than one candidate has been nominated pursuant to Standing Order 1063A, any motion received after the initial one shall be taken as a notice of motion, and such motions shall be put to the committee until one is adopted.
Il y a deux.
I understand that now there are two motions.
1 second. Perfect. We'll proceed now to the first motions that Mr. Ron McKinnon be elected as acting chair of the committee. Ms. O'Connell.
Yes.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Gay.
In favor.
Mr. Shifke.
En faveur.
Mr. Brock.
No.
Mr. Lloyd.
No.
Mr. Mutz.
No.
Mr. Melillo.
No.
Madame Normandin.
Pour.
Mr. Julian.
Pool.
Donc, so 7 in favor, 4 against. Donc, now we can say that Mr. McKinnon is the acting chair, has been duly elected as acting chair. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all. This feels oddly familiar. So I call this meeting to order. So welcome to the public portion of the meeting number 90 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. Pursuant to the order of reference of Monday, March 27th, 2023, the committee commences its study of Bill C-26, an act representing cybersecurity, amending the Telecommunications Act, and making consequential amendments to other acts. I would now like to welcome our witnesses today. We have from the Communications Security Establishment, we have Sami Khoury, Head, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, Danielle Couillard, Director General, Partnerships and Risk Mitigation at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. And to support the Communications Security Establishment, we have from the Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, Colleen McSween, Director General, National Cybersecurity Directorate, Kellyanne Gibson, Director, Cyber Protection Policy Division, and none of these?
Just the third one.
And Andre Arbour, Director General, Telecommunications and Internet Policy Branch. I now invite Mr. Khoury to deliver his opening statement. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for the invitation to appear today and discuss Bill C-26, an act respecting cybersecurity and amending the Telecommunication Act. My name is Sami Khoury, and I'm the head of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, also known as the Cyber Centre at the Communications Security Establishment. As you know, the world is becoming increasingly interconnected, and our reliance on technology continues to grow. However, this dependence exposes us to new risks and threats, particularly in the realm of cybersecurity and critical infrastructure. It also requires us to adopt new tools to strengthen our cyber defenses and respond to emerging cyber threats. Nous prenons au sérieux ces menaces.
We take these threats and the rise in state-sponsored attacks seriously, which is why we are committed to defending the Government of Canada and keeping its systems secure from cyber threats.
Today by providing an overview of the Cyber Centre and CSE's mandate to this committee. The Cyber Centre, part of CSE, is Canada's technical authority for cybersecurity and information assurance. It's also responsible for serving as a unified source of expert advice. In its operational capacity, the Cyber Centre shares cyber alert and threat assessment across the GC to ensure our information systems remain secure, responsive, and well-defended. Le Centre pour la cybersécurité.
The Cyber Center uses autonomous sensors to detect malicious cyber activity on government networks, systems, and cloud infrastructure.
These sensors allow the Cyber Center to detect cyber threats. Our classified knowledge of threat actor behavior allows us to defend against and block these threats. CSE also has a foreign signals intelligence mandate and conducts cyber operations to support Canada's national security objectives. This allows us to provide intelligence on foreign cyber threat, including the activity and intention of state and non-state actor, which is used to defend Canada. La Direction du renseignement étranger et le Centre pour
Together, the Foreign Intelligence Branch and the Cyber Center work hand in glove to detect and prevent cyber attacks on government networks, critical infrastructure, and other Canadian organizations.
I'd like to highlight a few of the key changes included in Bill C-26. To continue to adapt to the ever-evolving threat environment, Bill C-26 is a critical next step that provides the government with new tools and authorities to better bolster defenses, improve security across critical federally regulated industry sectors, and protect Canadians and Canada's critical infrastructure from cyber threats. This legislation would also establish a regulatory framework to strengthen cybersecurity for services and systems that are vital to national security and public safety, and give the government a new authority to issue cybersecurity directive to respond to emerging cyber threats. Au Centre pour la cybersécurité.
At the Cyber Center, it will facilitate the sharing of information as necessary to protect critical infrastructure and investigate reported incidents and provide mitigation advice.
It will also allow regulators to request advice, guidance, or services from CSE by providing information about the designated operator's cybersecurity program and mitigation of risk from the supply chain or use of third-party products and services. We are aware of the privacy concern raised by some stakeholder group about the reporting obligation of cybersecurity incidents to CSE. CSE and its Cyber Center has an important responsibility to protect Canadian privacy and personal information, and we take it very seriously. Moving forward, we are hopeful to see the continued progress of Bill C-26 in Parliament. Members of the committee, I can assure you that as the cyber threat landscape in Canada continues to evolve, CSE and the Cyber Center remain dedicated to ensuring the necessary protections are in place to support critical infrastructure and work closely with our partners. Nous invitons les Canadiennes et Canadiens à consulter.
We encourage Canadians to consult cyber.gc.ca for up-to-date advice and guidance related to cyber threats, or if they wish to receive more tailored cyber threat information.
Encourage victims to report a cyber incident to the Cyber Center through our online portal at cyber.gc.ca so that we can help share threat-related information with our partners to help keep Canada and Canadians safe online. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important discussion, and I'm looking forward to answering any additional questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. So we'll start our questions. We go first to Mr. Brock, for 6 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I will be in a position to move a motion in both official languages regarding car thefts. I believe it's all been distributed to members of this committee. It reads as follows, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
Ms. O'Connell on a point of order.
Mr. Chair, we aren't in committee business, and although I know this motion there was notice provided, we aren't in committee business and it's not on the subject matter. So I would suggest it's out of order.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. The notice is properly, the motion is given proper notice, and he was recognized on other than a point of order. So, Mr. Brock, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion reads, given that after 8 years of Liberal government, car thefts across Canada have drastically increased, including 93% in St. John, 106% in Montreal, 122% in Ottawa, Gatineau, 190% in Moncton, 217% in Toronto. Auto theft is devastating for those impacted, and costs are being passed on to consumers in the form of higher insurance premiums. Therefore, the committee report this to the House, its grave concern about the increased auto theft, that the Minister of Public Safety has not offered any new measures to immediately tackle the problem and recognize the government's failure to act on this matter, and that the committee immediately, A, call the Minister of Public Safety to appear before a committee within 2 weeks of this motion being adopted, and B, call the RCMP, the CBSA, and industry experts to appear before a committee within 2 weeks of this motion being adopted. Mr. Chair, that is the motion, and I'm prepared to provide some opening comments in support of this motion.
So we have a speaker list already. I will start. I'm sorry. We'll start with Mr. Motz, and we'll put you on the list.
Yeah, you're still in the motion, so can he not continue on?
I didn't see the chair.
Well, he moved the motion, kind of.
Move the motion.
So
Customarily, the mover is also entitled, unless they cede that position, entitled to provide some commentary.
sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So we know that this issue has caught the attention of the government, and they announced what they thought was going to be a pivotal moment in time, that they were going to convene a summit with industry leaders and government officials and law enforcement officials to discuss this ever-increasing urgent need to get control on our streets and to ensure that criminals who engage in this activity are not only detected, that they're charged, they're prosecuted, and sentenced accordingly. This soft on crime government over the last 8.5 years has done nothing but telegraph a message to criminals and would-be criminals that crime pays in this country, that bail provisions allow repeat offenders to continually receive bail on very generous conditions, providing no measure of community safety. And in the relation to this area, car thefts, it allows, quite essentially, criminals to continue this trade almost unabated. The problem we have here is that this is not a recent phenomenon. This has certainly been the cause of Justin Trudeau's failed leadership over the last 8 years, which has seen a marked increase of criminal activity across the board in this country. But in relation to property offenses and car thefts, we have seen a pronounced increase, almost 3 times, 300% in Toronto alone. Criminals are getting wise to the fact that luxury vehicles have a significant market abroad. They aren't stealing this for their own purposes. They're not stealing this so they can enjoy the benefits of a luxury vehicle. They're stealing this because they're part of an organized crime entity that operates, numerous criminal organization entities that operate from coast to coast in this country and have found a niche market of having these individuals, some as young as 12, 13 years of age. Anecdotally, I prosecuted those young offenders who were stealing cars, primarily at that time to strip vehicles of the wheels and other apparatus. They called it chinging, C-H-I-N-G-I-N-G. And they received a handsome amount of money for that. Long gone are the days where shoplifting at grocery stores and convenience stores actually paid off. They've realized that cars in particular carry a significant value abroad. And what's happening, and we're reading these stories literally ripped from the headlines every single day across this nation, is that because of our porous ports in this country, given that this Liberal government has not seen fit to equip CBSA officials with the appropriate powers and resources to check containers that are often placed on rail cars or placed on ships eventually and leaving our country for international domains. These are where the cars are going. And there is a market in the Middle East, there's a market in Africa, there's a market in South Asia for these vehicles. So this is a very lucrative operation for these criminals. This federal government has been derelict in its responsibility to deal effectively with criminal laws surrounding this area. Police services across this country are under-resourced or understaffed, are dealing with serious violent criminals, and when they have the time, are investigating car thefts. And unfortunately and anecdotally, I can speak to this, in my own riding at Brantford Brant, we simply don't have the resources to put into car thefts. And it's a shame, because victims come in many forms in this country, and generally we think of victims in the physical sense, that some physical violence has been bestowed on them. But people who are subjected to car thefts are indeed victims. And I recall a story that we heard most recently at our at our conservative, how dare myself call myself a liberal, but recently at our conservative caucus, event on Sunday, where our leader spoke about some town halls and some meetings that he had in Metro Toronto over the past few days. And he was talking to one individual in particular who had his vehicle, his luxury vehicle, stolen not once, but twice from his driveway. The first time, he didn't see the culprits, and they made good with their escape. And I'm sure that vehicle is now safely in the hands of some foreign individual. But he equipped himself with the appropriate surveillance outside of his house, and within days of him replacing that vehicle with another similar vehicle, he happened to be alerted to the fact that these individuals, probably the same individuals, were in the process of stealing his car again. And once he saw that happening in his driveway, he immediately called the police. And the police said, "I'm sorry, we can't get there because we're dealing with other pressing, urgent matters." He informed the operator that he was going to take matters into his own hands and deal with this, and he was warned against that. Don't do that. And I think for good reason he received that advice. You don't know if these individuals are armed with a gun or a knife or some other violent apparatus. So he literally saw this happening, but he was wise because he put on one of those air trackers on his second vehicle. So he was able to track the movement of his second stolen car, and he followed that particular device to a railway, and he happened to confirm that his vehicle was secured in a railway container. So he hopped the fence on whether it was CN or CP rails, and he was approaching the rail car when he saw railroad officials descending upon him. And he thought, great, I've got authorities and officials who will help me stop the train to retrieve my stolen vehicle. And what did he get in exchange for that misperception? He was actually fined for trespassing, even though he had the evidence that his vehicle had been stolen on a stolen vehicle on a rail car controlled by CP or CN, and it was allowed to leave, and he saw the rail car leave in the presence of these officials. So talk about double victimization, Mr. Chair. And that is just one story of probably thousands of stories that I'm sure that members can share with this committee. So this is a pressing and urging matter that public safety has a mandate to review thoroughly. Canadians in particular can't wait for this miraculous summit to produce results. The Liberal government is great at convening, great at having meetings, great at announcements, but terrible at follow-through. So this is the follow-through that needs to take place, and we need to have this motion pass, and we need to set aside the appropriate days to hear from the appropriate witnesses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. We go now to Mr. Motz.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to my colleague for bringing this forward. I want to continue on with some of this. You know, it's interesting that some of the reasons that we know in other crimes that this government has failed to act.
Pardon me, Mr. Motz. So to me, it looks like this is going to carry on until the end of our thing. I wonder if we can have agreement to, no? Okay, carry on, sorry.
Thank you again, Chair. I want to remind committee members that over the course of the last number of years, a former Justice Minister had not one but two government vehicles stolen. And in spite of this, we still had no action on auto theft. And It is a problem. It's not just a problem in Toronto where vehicles are stolen and head to the Port of Montreal, or in Montreal where they go to the port, and they do end up in other countries. I have been told firsthand incidents where people have traveled to other countries and have actually seen cars with the license plates of our provinces, other provinces on them, with Calgary Flames stickers on the back of their vehicles, on Ontario and Quebec license plates, driving around in the Middle East and some places in Africa. And in Alberta, we don't have the numbers that Montreal and Toronto have for auto theft, thankfully. But it's a growing crisis across the country. In Alberta, auto thefts are up 20% from 21 to 2022. And essentially, 1 out of every 5 vehicles in Canada is stolen in Alberta on a per capita basis. So that makes us the second highest province in the country per capita to have vehicles stolen. Saskatchewan is number 1, Manitoba is number 3. And what does this really boil down to? We all have to pay insurance. The cost of insurance is climbing exponentially as a result. Everybody pays higher premiums because of these vehicles being stolen. Canada-wide, we are being told that the annual insurance costs of auto thefts has risen to over $1 billion a year. $1 billion a year. And according to the Alberta Auto Insurance Board, the per capita rate of auto theft claims on those insurances that have a comprehensive insured vehicle is 148% higher than the national average. So that impacts me and my province directly, but it's not unusual across the country. Now, premiums on high theft models have gone up 25 to 50% over the last 2 years, with some insurers introducing what they would call a high theft vehicle surcharge of up to $500. So, and above the premium increases, they've got the surcharge on top of it, and why? I mean, I look back to policing days when auto theft wasn't as prevalent as it is today, but it certainly was becoming a burden and a problem. And as has been indicated, some of these vehicles were stolen just for the joyride. Some of them were stolen, for the traditional, what we consider chop shops, where the vehicle was taken and sold for parts, or VINs changed out of VIN plates, changed out of them, in order to effect some cash, and that's really what it's all about. But this issue has gotten worse and worse and worse over. If you track it from 2015 onward, it's becoming a significant issue. It has become a significant issue, and it's come up 34%. As an increase from 2015 to 2022. So that is significant. Now, why are we having these issues going on, and why are we having so many vehicles stolen? Well, I'll tell you from talking to some of those who were involved in crime, some of those that are still involved in crime, talking to our police agencies who deal with those when they get caught, is there is no deterrent. There's nothing that prevents these kids from being, or adults from being afraid of the justice system. It no longer has the teeth necessary to prevent crime. And that's what some legislation is supposed to do. It's supposed to prevent those, make it serious enough that those who wish to commit crimes reconsider and say, you know what, it's not worth it. So, the drastic increase to me is a direct result of the policies of this government. That the soft on crime approach, the whole catch and release policy, and this is just one area where that particular policy is now impacting Canadians, on average, because most everybody drives a car, most everybody's going to pay higher premiums for their insurance, And, if you've ever had your car stolen, it's not a fun process. And if it is stolen and recovered, and in these circumstances, most times they aren't recovered down in this part of the world because they're easy to get to a port, but they do create some challenges with respect to the whole aspect of owning a vehicle, and some people, they can't afford higher premiums. They can't afford to have a vehicle that that you have to try and get a rental or something while theirs is being stolen. So I think there are some solutions here. One, we need to ensure that there is an opportunity for law enforcement and to work collaboratively with the rail and CBSA authorities. We do know that our ports are very porous for contraband coming into this country and stolen goods and contraband leaving this country. And so it would seem reasonable that we would focus some attention to the ports, to law enforcement. I know I read recently of Toronto's great work on a number of arrests they've made and charges laid on a group of individuals who were this car theft ring. And it's organized crime. This has gotten to be big business. And I don't know I can tell you what the going rate is in different parts of the world for various drugs. I don't know what the going rate now is for a stolen luxury car. But it is lucrative enough for people to keep stealing them. And we need to be in a position where we take these issues seriously. We can, CN and CP have their own police agency. We can work with them. What I find troubling is the incident that Mr. Brock explains on one Canadian's experience with his stolen vehicle twice, and the frustration that must cause. That causes the whole, I guess, the whole justice system from that perspective, and the more people that hear about stuff like that, into disrepute. It brings it into disrepute because law enforcement seems leaves the impression, and I appreciate the fact that they are busy with some hot calls most times, that they can't respond in a timely fashion. The frequency with which these types of offenses occur also overwhelm the resources that law enforcement has. Why is it that this individual who did some proactive work, he put a suitcase tracker in a vehicle and monitored where his vehicle was? I don't know what agencies he tried to contact along the way, but you would think that there'd be a willingness, to cooperate with each other and try and have the issue. If it was in a container, you'd think that it wouldn't be the only car in that container, and so it would be amazing to see what sort of cooperation can happen. I think we need to revisit the issues of our justice system and what our courts view as repeat offenders. We had a step in a bill recently this fall on improving the bail system. It was a start, but it wasn't the start that it wasn't as far as we needed to go. We need to ensure that these individuals, if they are caught, they don't repeat and repeat and repeat before they even get to trial. And and I think as you look across the country, across the globe, the question has to be asked: Why is Canada a target for this sort of criminal activity? It's pretty simple. Because we don't do anything to our criminals. We've got to the point where it's a high reward, low risk. Even back before there was that slippery slide of our justice system and where our courts were such that and the laws were such that there was reverse onus on those who committed offenses. Criminals will tell you they're not afraid of the justice system. There's no punishment anymore. We can't change behavior if we don't do anything to reinforce that we have a law and it needs to be followed. And compared to the United States, who has much larger crime rates than we do, our auto theft is substantially higher. Why? It's the catch and release program. It's the, as I said, high reward, low risk environment. Our border, as we've talked about, has it's porous, and the fact that do we have resources that are the proper resources in place to deal with the fact that we have so much contraband coming in, and then issues with this circumstance, stolen vehicles leaving the country. I mean, if they're being shipped out of the country, there's only a couple places you need to go: Vancouver and Montreal for a port, right? Rarely do they cross land borders. It happens, but it's rarely that they do. And so, dedicated teams to deal with this, like to do interdiction teams for drugs, same thing can happen for automobiles. And so, I think that's something that we need to pay close attention to. The question may be asked: well, all these containers have to have manifests. You just can't ship stuff without some sort of tracking device or tracking paperwork. Well, organized crime, they submit fraudulent fraudulent cargo manifests, claiming they ship anything but, and yet we don't check. There is the summit, as had been mentioned, that's coming up in February to address this issue. My question is, why did it take so long to have even a conversation about this particular issue? Why did it take so long to have former Justice Minister Lametti address it when he himself had 2 cars stolen? Albeit they were not a big deal to him because they weren't really his cars; they were government cars. So we don't get too worked up over somebody else paying the bill on that, I suppose. So, $1.2 billion in the insurance industry pays out. That's covered off by premiums. They're not. The insurance companies aren't in the business of losing money, so we are all paying for it. So I wonder, I wonder what's going to come of the summit. I've been to I was many years ago. I was at a summit by then former Minister of Public Safety Ralph Goodale, and it was on gangs and guns, and that was in 15, 16, somewhere around there. And we talked big, but we didn't really. We didn't really solve a lot of problems at that particular time, and it took years to even start getting any action. So I'm wondering, what to expect from this. I'm not necessarily optimistic that we're going to have a huge uptake in this, and I hope to be wrong. Like I really hope to be wrong. It's sad when our country has a reputation as being a donor country for stolen vehicles. That's really what the industry thinks, and other countries think that we are. We're a donor country, and what does this? I mean, when you look at a bigger picture, we all care about the welfare of our communities, about the safety of our communities, and I believe everyone in this committee certainly does. We have different approaches to solve it, but we all agree. But why would we not provide significant focus on an industry that is making billions of dollars off of stolen vehicles annually, and where does that money go? It's organized crime going for drug trafficking, human trafficking, terrorist financing. Those are sort of things that we need to, and we've all been, as government and opposition and party, we are all on the same page of wanting to deal with those issues. And so I would hope that as a group, as a committee that has a responsibility on this and many other issues related to public safety and policing in this country and borders, CBSA, that we would look seriously at this auto theft study and pass this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Motz. We go now to Mr. Biddle. Mr. Biddle, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And again, we see Conservatives filibustering. They talk a big game when it comes to public safety, but we have before us officials who are here on cybersecurity, something that the Conservatives pretend to care about, but at the same time will filibuster. They don't want to hear from witnesses. They don't want to hear from experts. They come to ask for a motion. A different version has already been adopted, Madame Michaud's motion with respect to auto theft and members understanding that this is an area of concern. That has been adopted. That is something that we want to go forward. But no, let's burn half a meeting is the Conservative viewpoint on this. They don't care. It's just about chaos at this point. And we see Mr. Brock throwing municipal police services under the bus. And he knows that the federal government isn't responsible for the resourcing of municipal police sources. Mr. Motz, both at the same time, promotes American-style laws and says they don't work at the same time. Though I guess when you just go on and talk about nothing in an attempt to filibuster, that's the type of stuff you're going to get. It's truly shocking, Mr. Chair. But that's what we've seen the Conservative Party come to, that when there is an issue of security before the committee, an issue of national security, cybersecurity, spent months talking about it in question period. And here it is, legislation to take action on it, delay. The right, auto theft is a concern. It's something that this committee adopted, I believe unanimously, to study this. And the best way to get that study quickest is to get through debate on C-26 so that we can get to a study that we all want to get to, but the Conservatives want to delay. Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn debate on this subject so we can get back to witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. Motion to adjourn the debate is on the floor. All in favor? A recorded vote? Okay, go ahead.
Ms. O'Connell.
Yes.
Mr. Biddle.
Yes.
Mr. Gaillard. Mr. Shifke. Monsieur Shifke.
Oui.
Mr. Zuberi.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Brock.
Absolutely not.
Mr. Lloyd.
No.
Mr. Motz.
No.
Mr. Melillo.
No.
Madame Normandin.
You didn't vote for
No.
me as chair.
Mr. McGregor.
Yes.
Cut him off, waste winner.
6 in favor, 5 against.
So the debate is now adjourned. We carry on with Mr. Gahir. Mr. Gahir, please go ahead. 6 minutes.
Great, thank you. It's great to return to the business of the committee again. And I'll have the full 6 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So my questions to the panel is, there is a framework that's being brought in terms of security programs that operators have to have. What does a security program entail, like an average security program?
Thank you very much for the question. So in developing a cybersecurity program, and perhaps my colleague can help me out with a bit more detail here, but what we'd be looking for in that cybersecurity program, essentially just a layout of, what the designated operators are doing to protect their critical cyber systems, so the specific measures that they're putting in place. the technical elements that would be built in, which they can do, of course, in consultation with our colleagues at the Cyber Center. That will be a service that will be available to them to help them put in that information. Is there anything further?
Sure. I don't have too much extra to add beyond to say that the cybersecurity program is one of the obligations that we'd be looking at to flesh out in regulations. So in consultation with our stakeholders, in consultation with the Cyber Center, with the expertise in that area. But the idea is that the cybersecurity program would be something that would continue to be an iterative program, so that as we bring in information and understand the threat that we need to face, those cybersecurity programs can evolve over time, so that it's almost a virtuous circle where we're learning and continuing to be able to adapt to the threat before us.
Great. Thank you. It also says that designated operators will be obliged to take reasonable steps to mitigate supply chain and third-party service or product risks. Can you speak a little bit more about what that is?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, put incredibly simply, it's just reasonable steps to decrease the likelihood of the risk materializing and decrease the impact of a risk materializing. Again, as my colleague pointed out, the details of that will be fleshed out in regulation.
So during the consultation phase, you obviously spoke to several different individuals and parties and stakeholders. Were there similar themes that arose that you noticed, themes that you needed to tackle or incorporate?
In talking with stakeholders, I think one of the key things we heard was generally support for the legislation. I think, as you pointed out and you've seen in your reports, several, depending on the stakeholders, had sort of different views. We heard some of them today. Just probably more information required on the privacy protections in place. Questions around the ministerial powers that are included. Those tended to be sort of the key themes that came up.
What about the protection of confidential information? What have you heard from stakeholders on that? Because that's always of key concern.
So we've heard that is a key consideration. It's one that we, I think, have acknowledged going in to the drafting of this legislation. And I think what we've generally spoken to is the idea that the protection of confidential information underpins this legislation, because if companies and designated operators don't feel that we are going to protect that information, then they're not going to share it. And so what you see in the legislation is specific provisions to define confidential information, protect it, and there are consequences if we or others don't protect that confidential information. So it was something that we did hear from stakeholders, and we spoke about the provisions that exist within the Act.
Great, thank you.
You have 2 minutes left?
2 minutes? Oh, okay. So what new authorities will the government receive under C-26?
So under Part 2, the government would get the ability to issue a cybersecurity directive. That would be a GIC order. Andre, did you want to take the first Part 1? Sorry.
Certainly. Under Part 1, for the amendments to the Telecommunications Act, there would be new authorities to issue an order in council regarding high-risk vendor equipment, and for telecommunications service providers to remove or put restrictions on that equipment. It would also include a ministerial order power regarding secondary issues around the security of telecommunications networks. That would include direction to telecommunications service providers, so providers of internet or cellular services, to protect their networks against a range of different threats. Those could include cyber risks, but also could include physical threats. So for instance, to collect information or to take certain actions to make sure their networks are more resilient. So to have multiple paths within their network. So if there happens to be a failure, there's resiliency in the network to deal with that. And then there are certain authorities that stem from that go into more implementation issues. To collect information from the carriers to inform those order-making powers, as well as inspection and enforcement powers, including administrative monetary penalty authorities.
Thank you, Mr. Gahir. Thank you. C'est maintenant Madame Normandin.
Now, Madame Normandin, 6 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you to the witnesses for joining us. I'd like an answer to the following question on the labor shortage that we're operating in. The question was covered at the Defense Committee as well. So sometimes we have a good bill, but implementation can be the difficult part when there aren't enough resources to put in place. For example, cybersecurity directives for some companies. So currently, it seems that the private market is better able to recruit people than the public sector. Do you have concerns about having a shortage of employees to implement C26, given the additional burden that it will lead to implementing the bill regarding cybersecurity directives?
Merci bien pour la...
Thank you very much for the question. Today we have a program with the private sector that's pretty mature for hiring, and our teams work 24 hours a day developing partnerships with the private sector with essential infrastructure, and the team continues to grow. So we are recruiting, and losing staff is less than 4% losses, so it's a pretty impressive number for us. So with the new bill, there will be the capacity to have even more people, and we're hoping to go forward and to identify where we will recruit these people throughout Canada. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Ottawa. We will find people in Montreal, and we're even talking about opening a pilot project office in Montreal. Thank you. I'd like to hear what you'd say about the fact that some companies might be defined as being essential infrastructure under the bill, but some companies will be more of a gray area with their infrastructure. With the drafting of the bill, is it enough? Would there be incentives for some companies that wouldn't necessarily be defined as having critical infrastructure so that they autonomously, on a voluntary basis, decide to do what C26 calls for with the cybersecurity directives? And if not, would there be an openness so that smaller companies in gray areas can make use of the essence of C26? And that gets back to the labor shortage issue. If there is enthusiasm for this, will there be a response?
Merci encore pour la...
Thank you again for the question. Regarding designating companies, perhaps I'll ask my colleagues from public safety to respond, because it would be through their process that some companies would be designated under the bill. Today at the Centre, we provide assistance to anybody who reaches out to us and asks for help, designated or not. We will be there to answer their cybersecurity needs and support them in the development of their cybersecurity plan. So even if it's in a gray area, we can definitely talk to them and see how we can help them develop their cybersecurity plan. Thank you. I'd like to pick up on that, if I may. Would it be good for companies to have incentives to make use of your services? Because it seems that companies, when they are victims of a cyber attack, are reluctant to admit that they were caught. Is there more work that should be done to encourage companies that wouldn't be covered by the designation of a critical sector to invite them to make use of your services when there's cybersecurity everywhere with the Internet of Things. It's not just companies with critical infrastructure that could be essential in the future. Everybody will be. So should we have more incentives, financially, for example, to use the CSE services?
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good question. I think this is a dilemma we are currently facing with cybersecurity. It's the value of reporting and the risk to reputation, to a business's reputation. So I think Bill C-26 tries to demonstrate the benefit of reporting, because here the value in reporting to CSE for an entity, one of the roles we have to play is helping that entity get through the event, but also we now have the capacity to understand what happened, to develop indicators that they've been compromised, information we can now share with all of that sector, with all sectors in Canada, in a model that's relatively timely. So quick. So I think that's one of the aspects of the bill that's very important. We will be able to take information, help the victim, but also share the benefit of that with all sectors in Canada and with small and medium-sized businesses and the entire Canadian economy.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you.
We go now to Mr. McGregor. 6 minutes, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to adjourn the meeting.
Very well. A motion to adjourn the meeting is on the floor. All in favor? 1, 2. I think that all opposed. I believe it carries. So the meeting, thank you to our witnesses. Your testimony is certainly important to us. Appearances, sometimes don't appear that way, but we do appreciate your time and your effort, and thank you for your time. And we are now adjourned. Thank you.